Good evening, everybody. Welcome to your special Rangers Review evening briefing as we discuss today's earlier EGM, as well as a press conference conducted by Rangers Chairman and Vice Chair Andrew Cavenagh and Paraag Marathe. It's been a long day for Chris, who has been at both. How's it going, Chris?
A long day that's not quite finished yet, but any time we do one of these breaking news videos, it usually means that there's something very interesting to talk about, and I think that can certainly be applied to events of today. So a long day, but many words heard, transcribed, written, and turned into content. But hopefully people enjoy what's on the site and what we're about to go through.
Yeah, you have earned your money's worth today. Plenty on the website, folks. Do go and check it out after you watch us, of course. But we're here to run through some of the big talking points at both. The EGM took place at the Hilton in Glasgow, well attended. We heard from both Cavenagh and Marathe. Fraser Thornton was there, of course. Patrick Stewart as well. And it was pretty interesting stuff all in. Chris, we'll tackle that first of all. What was it? The big, of course, the £20 million investment, the initial investment ratified there amongst the shareholders. A number of interesting points raised as well. What did you make of it all?
I think the most important part from a Rangers perspective is that all four resolutions were passed. I don't think that will come as a surprise, given the shareholding breakdown at present. But 98% in favour on all of those resolutions. If people are wondering why this meeting was even held in the first place, we had an explainer on the site over the weekend going through why it was here and what it was actually for. So in effect, it was there to allow the consortium and the investors to put money into the club. So that £20 million share issue has been approved. That can now proceed. So amongst all the headlines and the talk about transfers and players and stadium redevelopment, ultimately that's the most important bit for Rangers. That bit of housekeeping has been taken care of. But obviously there was a number of other interesting points. I thought Andrew Cavenagh and Paraag Marathe came across really impressively. I think probably you had a feeling that Paraag would conduct himself and he would have that style and have that way with words. People have obviously seen him, they've heard of him, they've heard him speak previously. Nobody really knew what to expect from Andrew Cavenagh. Again, on the site over recent months, we've had really in-depth pieces on both of them, trying to give the fans a bit of a flavour of what they're like, their business careers, what they will potentially bring to the table. But it's always nice to hear it straight from source. And so I thought both of them came across really well. Probably more surprised by the way that Andrew spoke. A couple of wasn't trying to be funny, but he was a bit. Had a couple of light-hearted moments in there. He said right at the start he stood up. He didn't want to sit down for the whole meeting, so he wasn't in a low block. And there were a couple of light-hearted moments in there, and he finished it, which I thought was actually a real touch of class. After the votes had been completed, come back up and he thanked the former boards, the former chairman, the former investors for their time, the money, and the effort they put into this club over the years. And it felt like one of those, much like it did 10 years ago when King, Gilligan and Murray stood at Ibrox. You could tell that it's a really significant moment and a really significant day in the history of this football club.
Certainly feels like that, absolutely. Nice wee comment has come in here. I'm not too sure if you've paid this boy, Chris, but he says, Chris has been the best signing that Rangers Review have made. Excellent contacts and content. So thank you for your kind words, Stuart. That's nice, Chris, is it not?
The check is in the post, Stuart. Yeah, you've done your bit. So no, thanks very much. I actually bumped into a couple of review watchers and readers and guys interact with the show at the hotel earlier on. So it's always nice when people say how much they enjoy the show and how often they tune in. It's all greatly appreciated. And of course, we couldn't do the show. We couldn't have the website without the backing of the Rangers fans. So always nice to hear. So much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I like this, Andrew Cavenagh. Asked about making a return on his investment, he said, "I'll be very blunt. We do not have an exit plan. We have a growth plan. We'll figure out the exit plan once we succeed with the growth plan." And they also offered insight into his plans for Rangers. He said, "The passion of the fans is the number one thing I love about this club. And number two would be Ibrox. It's our castle and a magical place to be. Our ambition is to put the team in a position to win the league and compete in Europe. We're not here to throw money, win a title and go off into the sunset. We are here for the long term. Resources, people and a plan, the three most important things going forward." I like that. Ibrox is the castle, a magical place to be. It absolutely is, Chris, but certainly saying the right things there, and not looking just to earn a quick buck and head off into the sunset here. They want to really set down some foundations, and they're here for the long term, as they say.
There's not really a quick buck to be made, and certainly not at the level of the initial investment. They are round about £70 million in terms of shares. They've just committed to the share issue on the back of those share purchases. That's not a get rich quick scheme, is it? That's not a case of I'm going to go and put a wee bit in and I'm going to make a lot. Now, they may well, if player trading really kicks off, if dividends can be paid, if the shape of European football changes and Rangers end up in some sort of form of Super League and the share price naturally rises on the back of that, there are ways that the consortium could make money. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen even next year. They are in this for the long haul. They're in here for the right reasons. The inside the takeover piece that we had on the site last weekend, I think it was, hopefully again gave people a bit of an insight into the time and the money and the effort that the consortium have put in just to get to this stage. In the press conference or press briefing that Andrew Cavenagh and Paraag Marathe held at Ibrox this afternoon, Andrew can ran through some of the games that he's been at, and it's not as if he's just jumped on his local supporters bus and going half an hour. He's putting the effort in to fly across to be at these games, both in Glasgow. He spoke about Fenerbahce away being one of his most memorable games that he's been at. He mentioned being at Parkhead. He's also had the games at Ibrox. So he has invested in Rangers in more ways than one. This is not a plaything. It's not something that he's just going to dabble at. He's fully on board. He's put his money where his mouth is. And I think anyone who was at the meeting this morning or who reads the Q&A or reads the various pieces on the site, they will hopefully get that feeling from him that this is not, as he said, they're not in here just to ride off into the sunset with a couple of pounds in their back pocket, because that situation isn't actually there for them. They're here, as I've outlined, both of them outlined a couple of times. They want to win. They want success. They want those big European nights. They want to see league titles and cups being paraded around Ibrox. That is their return on their investment, not what they can actually get in pounds and pence.
Yep, we recorded our Q&A on the extra channel earlier. Gaz Jones was at the EGM, and he said the new chairman and vice chairman both spoke well today, showed a lot of respect to the club and supporters. I really feel these guys will bring back the good times, and it's shared by many others in the comments just now. Maka says, "Evening guys, having watched the AC and PM's interview, I feel good times are lie ahead." Let's hope you are right. Other interesting points. In fact, there was actually, you were live tweeting during that EGM, Chris. Some interesting points that were raised. I thought Paraag and Marathe addressed, well, first of all, with regards to the youth academy. Interesting line. He said they're not interested in looking at the past and how it's been working previously. He was said that it's the lifeblood of the club, and said it's where you start to bleed blue and learn the Rangers way. They'll try and find the best youth for the academy. And he's not here to talk about the past, finding wholesale talent rather than paying retail in the market. So I thought that was quite interesting from Paraag. Certainly, there's no doubt about it. It needs revamped, and I thought that was quite telling what he had to say about that.
I think it has to be part of a wider club strategy. You need buy-in from every single level. So clearly you're going to have buy-in from the youth coaches who are teaching these boys. You're going to have buy-in from the head of academy because it's his job. Do you have buy-in from a first-team manager? They clearly believe that they do in terms of Russell Martin and his role as head coach. Do you then have buy-in from your sporting director? Do you have buy-in from your board and from your chairman? If those boxes are ticked all the way down, there is no reason why Rangers cannot have a very successful youth academy. If one of those things falls, then the chances of that process really paying dividends are really hindered. Every one of those things has to be aligned. Now, Patrick Stewart was asked about the football review and some of the things they've implemented. Obviously, Kevin Thelwell being one of them as a sporting director. The academy has to be on that list. The academy needs a real change. It needs a real uplift. I know we touched on it the other day there in terms of David McCallum's position. The academy has to be one of the cornerstones of Rangers. There's no point in putting money into it and putting so many man hours into it for the results that Rangers have really got out of it, which overall it's not really been enough. There's players here and there who have done okay. Nathan Patterson also stands out as the main one. His fee in effect pays for the academy for quite a number of years, but you can't just have one. You need to have a real conveyor belt of talent coming through. And like you, I thought it was interesting that Paraag was as forthright on the academy. Clearly sees it as one of the areas where there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of scope for improvement there for Rangers.
Someone asked how much money is available, didn't it? What sort of players are we looking at? And they were quite rightly, they're not going to come out and say who the transfer targets are and how much money they have available. But Haggis Killer gets in touch. He says, I think Paraag was right to be coy about the transfer budget, but I think a lot of fans will be worried he wouldn't give a figure and the lack of signings. Does Haggis Killer have a point, Chris?
I don't think they should be worried about the fact that they were going to put a figure on it. That was never going to be the case. Andrew Cavanas started at the head of the meeting talking about how they'll be as open and as transparent and as clear as they possibly can be, that they value supporter relations and giving information to the fans. On that kind of question, he said we're going to be very opaque there. They're not going to say, by the way, we've got £25 million as a transfer budget, and we want to sign 12 players, and those 12 players, they can all leave because they're on far too much money. And by the way, that's who they're going to. No football club does that. Rangers certainly can't operate in that way. One of the answers from Andrew Cavenagh that's on the website just now is speaking a wee bit about player trading and about the budget and how that 20 million will be spent. And I keep paraphrasing them, but basically he said they don't want to just put X amount in to then say, well, we've got all this money, let's just go and spend it like a kid in a sweet shop. It's going to be spent in a sustainable way. So they feel that 20 million is a good starting point for the summer. Who knows? Players move on. That I don't think that 20 million is going to be all that Rangers spend over the summer. They may find that they don't have to spend it all. They may sell 2 or 3 assets and find that they've got a nice surplus there. It's a long window. There's a lot still to happen. You're not going to get any member of the Rangers board coming out on the 23rd of June and saying this is our transfer budget. That's not how Rangers are going to operate. So I don't think it was a nice try from a gentleman that asked that particular question. If it had worked, it would have been a back page for a number of my colleagues, but that's not going to happen.
Big thank you to Stuart Grant, who's very kindly donated one Rangers Review extra membership. That's very kind of you, Stuart. Thank you for that. So if you want to take that up, folks, please do so. Another interesting point that Paraag touched on was they are looking at hospitality and stadium expansion. Chris, the priority at this moment in time, quite rightly, is getting a team on the park that can compete. But no real surprise, really, that they are looking at that. We know they built a brand new stadium, didn't they, for the 49ers over there in the US. They're expanding Ellen Road with Leeds United. And we can expect Ibrox to be upgraded as well under their stewardship.
I don't think that comes as a surprise at all. When they were over for their meeting, or the tour, was that late April, I think that was.
Yep.
They also had a good look around Ibrox and all the suites and all the facilities. They did the same up at training ground. They are fully aware of what they've bought. In effect, they will know some of the difficulties of Ibrox. They will know the areas where they can make quick gains and quick improvements, and they will know what the bigger scope is for stadium expansion. They mentioned a few times the size and the passion of the Rangers fans. They clearly feel that if they can, one, build a stadium that can house more fans, but then two, the most important bit, put a team worthy of that stadium on the pitch, they will be confident that they can put bums on seats. And I think that's, like, you look at the backing that this support has given this club over recent years, and some fairly poor times. There has been, as I say, Seville was great, 55 was great. There has been the odd cup win here and there, but overall, the last 10 years or so, it's not been what anyone wanted and what anyone was hoping for. But the crowds have still been there, and that, I think, will give the consortium a real thirst for, if we can get this right, if we can put a successful side on the park, who knows where these crowds could go and what the appetite will be. Of course, it's then, can you satisfy that appetite? And that comes from those small gains, like I mentioned, like new hospitality suites, or doing some other work in and around the stadium footprint. The bigger picture is obviously more seats and an expansion of Ibrox. So again, I don't think it's a surprise there was no big details on that. I don't think they were ever going to come on stage today with a PowerPoint and say, we're going to put 6,000 seats on there, 6 on there, 6 on there, or we're going to knock it down and we're going to start again. But I think they've given people a real insight into their serious about this, and an expansion or a bigger redevelopment of Ibrox is certainly something that's on the cards.
Yep, it's a point that I want just to bring up, because I think someone asked this on one of the Q&A shows. I think it was maybe a couple of weeks ago. He said, Fall Victim says, Chris, was there any update given on the sports bar? That's an instant new revenue stream. When it opens, should be selling name rights to it as well. That was a James Bisgrove thing, wasn't it, initially, when the New Edmiston House was getting built and the store was getting moved from that corner of the stadium to the newly built New Edmiston House, but it's been lying dormant since. Any wording on that, Chris?
No update on that today, but again, it will be on their radar. They will see that as a revenue stream. They will see that as an area, again, that can be improved, and do it fairly quickly and do it fairly easily. That's a project that's been mothballed for quite some time now. It was a good idea, but like a lot of things over the last few seasons, very badly executed. So that's something I'm sure that they will have on their list. It wasn't something that got brought up today, but I'm sure that will be on their to-do list. And I said it's a fairly easy win in that regard if they can get it right.
Yeah, let's get to a few points before we address that press conference. I love this. Robert Burns says, what's Cavanaugh's vision regarding the Ibrox pies? I imagine catering will be something they'll be looking to enhance, shall we say, at Ibrox, which will be a good thing, you would imagine. Maka says, Marathe said he wants us to be surprised by the signings. You think there are a couple of marquee names lined up, Chris? I've said before, I think they will need to spend money on some players. I think Rangers need and 2 to 3 perhaps real quality additions being brought in, players that they spent a good amount of cash on. Do you think this is what he's alluding to, Chris? Are you expecting big money signings to come in this summer?
It depends how you class marquee. Now, do you class marquee as a big name, or do you class it as a big transfer fee? We have seen both types of signings come up here and not exactly work. I would be wary of buying a player just because of a name and because he's got a name. Say there's a whole, you could probably put a team together of guys who have got big names and big pedigrees, and it's just not worked for them. So I don't think they need a marquee name as such, but I do get why people are expecting someone of a slightly higher profile. It would be seen as like a statement of intent signing, if you like. But ultimately, it's about what the team do and whether the team is going to be ready for Champions League or Europa League. Certainly ready for the domestic campaign, and whether these guys come in with big reputations or big names. Ultimately, if they're the best people to fill the shirts and they then produce the best squad and the best team, that's the most important thing.
Yep, slightly left field, but Paul raises a point here. He says, Derek, why do you think the atmosphere is different between the league and Europe? And someone's actually responded and sort of answers it relatively well. Andrew says, the players always get up for the big nights more than playing Livingston 10 men behind the ball. I always enjoy European matches at Ibrox, watching it, because you often get teams that come out and try and have a go, and you can't beat Ibrox under the lights. You always more often than not, get fans coming from far and wide and filling the away corner and making quite an atmosphere as well. You don't often get that when many of the teams in the Scottish Premiership come to town. I think repetition doesn't help either when you play each team often, and all these things, I think, make it a far greater fan experience on a European night than your sort of routine Saturday afternoon playing the likes of, no disrespect to Livingston, but those sort of teams, Chris.
If Rangers are winning these games a bit more comfortably and are doing so in a bit more of an entertaining style, I dare say you'll see the atmosphere pick up domestically. We were at a number of games last season, lost count of the number of times myself and Josh were on the show post match, and there's not a lot of happy faces round about us. Because Rangers had just been so poor to watch, results more often than not, and not going in their favour. I think if they have a side that is good to watch, it's on the front foot, it's scoring goals, and most importantly, it's winning games and looking like it could win some silverware. I think that will naturally improve the overall matchday experience and improve the atmosphere.
Yep. The press conference was interesting. I love this from Andrew Cavenagh about the phone call that changed your life about potentially buying the club. Where were you? What was going through your head? I'll read you what he had to say, folks. It was on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, outside a coffee shop, about to go to a New York Yankees game. I've known about Rangers forever as a football fan, so when the phone call came to ask if I'd have an interest, it was a lightning bolt moment. The call was from Les Allen, a banker in New York. I had met him 6 months prior, and he knew our group was interested in a rare but good opportunity in football. Les called me, and I said, absolutely. 3 seconds later, I was on the phone to Paraag. There are many things about this club that are attractive, but the big three are the supporters. The breadth, the depth of the fan base is incredible. We've not seen many other clubs in Europe with this sort of scope and passion. Ibrox is an incredibly magical place to attend as a supporter, magical to and the competitions in which we play, the league, the cups, and in Europe. He says the last few months have been an incredible experience. One of my favourite moments in life is the 5 minutes before the match kicks off, when you can feel the electricity. I was lucky to go to the match at Parkhead, and it was incredible. Absolutely was, Andrew. He said, I learned a couple of new phrases and gestures when I was there, but it was a fantastic experience. It was the first match where our fans were allowed back in, and we had 2,500 fans there, but they were incredibly loud and vocal in showing their support. It was one of the best football experiences of my life. He's got the bug already, Chris.
I think that's safe to say. He's been at a number of games over the course of the last few months. As we had in that profile piece on Cavenagh that I mentioned earlier on, one of the details in that was the fact that he actually came to a game before anyone here knew that he was interested in actually having a say in Rangers. He decided just to come over, and he actually sat in the seats just outside the Gordon Ramsay restaurant in that corner. It was the Dundee United game. It was cold, and it was not a classic. Around about November time, I think it was, and that didn't put him off. If you're not going to be put off by that, and put off by some of the dross that he had to sit and endure over the course of last season, if he can get through that, then he can get through can get through anything. Again, one of the details we had in that profile piece was his affection for football. I think people generally think, that Americans grow up and they're into baseball or basketball or ice hockey, but he has always been a fan of football. He's also a goalkeeper in his college days, and that's something that love of the game, that knowledge of the game. When you then get the chance, how do you fancy investing in Rangers? It's obvious that he's going to have that kind of lure there, and the rest, as I say, is history. From that initial phone call, we've gone through a rather lengthy process that's resulted in this takeover, resulted in this new era. And I think listening to Andrew and Paraag today, there was a real sense of they know what they've bought into, but they could still be surprised because they ain't seen nothing yet. Almost they've seen some good times. They've been at games. They've seen some big performances, obviously in Europe. He mentioned the Old Firm game there. They're just wee tasters of what could actually happen if they do get this right. There's certainly plenty more to come.
Yep, the pair of them, incidentally, I watched the Rangers TV interview with them. They both came across well as well. Do go give that a watch also, folks. But they were asked, as they were in the press conference, about why Russell Martin was selected as the new Rangers head coach. Andrew Cavanas says there were 4 criteria that we looked at for the head coach. 1, somebody who would coach what we think is the right style of play or game model. 2, someone who would build the culture and the way we think it needs to be built. 3, someone who will develop talent. And 4th, someone who will win matches. Russell was a standout across all those metrics. Unanimously among our team, we are thrilled to have Russell as our head coach. I thought it was interesting as well. Paraag said, certainly on the Rangers TV piece I watched, Chris, is that he's someone that is learned from his previous jobs. I think that's important because he'd still be Southampton manager if he had managed to iron out any sort of mistakes that he had made there. So hopefully he's learned from his spells at his previous clubs and he goes on and is a success at Rangers. He also touched on Paraag about Kevin Thelwell and Dan Purdy. He says he was a big fan of those two prior to joining Rangers. He was aware of the work they did at Everton before. So a lot of belief in the guys taking over looking after the football department.
That was one of the things they both said on the stage at the general meeting, and a theme of the press conference as well. They will be there as chairman and as vice chairman. They will set the direction of travel. They will set the metrics that those underneath them will be judged by. If all of those things and all of those people, all those departments, if they're successful, there's a big chance that Rangers are going to be successful. If they feel that someone is not pulling their weight or is not doing the job properly, is not carrying out the role as they see it, I think we saw a bit of the personal side of them today. I think we saw the fact that they're clearly polished individuals. They're good in that arena, clearly vastly experienced businessmen in their own respective fields. I think we're still to see the ruthless side of them. I think we're still to see the harder edge to them. But if anyone at Ibrox thinks that they're going to be able to coast through and they're going to get away with being second best, I think they're in for a shock. And that's at all levels. As both of them said today, they are here to win. They're not here to finish second. And that mentality will filter down from the very top, chairman, vice chairman. That'll filter down through into Kevin Thelwell, into Russell Martin, into the squad, into every member of staff at the football club.
Yep, there's a couple of interesting points I wanted to bring up before we call it a day today. Loads of you tuning in, so thank you, folks. Paul with a point, and it was brought up at the EGM. Chris, have you heard anything about a new medical team and doctor? Paraag addressed the sort of injury situation, didn't he, somewhat on the medical side of things as well?
He did, and he spoke about the overall structure that you can put in place. So yes, you want a highly qualified and experienced individual in the role of physio or doctor or head of sports science, but it's about how all of those areas combine to manage the load on a player, to get him the best injury recovery, to get him the best injury prevention. I can't remember exactly how he phrased it. He phrased his answer, but it was along the lines of a player's best quality is being available. So,
yeah,
and that sums up a problem that Rangers have had for quite some time. Too many players have got technical qualities, but have not been available, and that's no use going forward. It's something that they have to address. There will be changes in that medical department over the course of the summer. Don't have any names on that yet, and how in terms of how that will look. It's certainly an area, again, one of many that there's scope for improvement in.
Yes, most definitely. Other bits of news you might have seen today, folks. UEFA have confirmed the Champions League qualifier with Panathinaikos. It will take place at Ibrox 22nd of July. The return in Athens the following week on the 30th of July. It will take place at the Olympic Stadium in Athens and not Panathinaikos' own ground. They are going through a sort of a situation that Rangers had to go through last season, whereby there's improvement works taking place at their decrepit old ground, and they're unable to play there. So, I think that's probably a good thing as far as Rangers are concerned. They'll go to the Olympic Stadium. You ever been there before, Chris?
I've never done Athens on my travels. Josh was also over for Olympiacos last year, but be my first one. So I had a feeling that this would get released in a very busy day, but I don't have time to actually get on the internet and try and plan a trip. So a job for tonight, maybe.
Yeah, it's going to be sweltering over there. Colin with the point. We touched on this. I think I was on with you, Chris, last week. He says, I thought we were seeded, Derek. I know I don't see the benefit of being seeded when you're at home first. Surely you would like to think that you would have the return at home if you were seeded in this round. I think UEFA should even introduce something where if you get drawn at home, brought out the hat first, then you get to decide if you want to play at home or away first. So I do not see any benefit to Rangers of this. It's going to be a tough tie. We all know this. Let's just hope they can get through this stage of the qualifying round, and then it guarantees them at least Europa League group stage football. So, huge clash on the horizon, and plenty of time, of course, to look ahead to that game, but not if you're Russell Martin and the coaching team. Players need to be brought in. Of course, the players reported back for pre-season training today, and Russell Martin will be making them go through their paces. Of course, I think today would be very much an assessment and taking measurements and physical sort of day as opposed to anything else. But interesting stuff. It feels like that we're now on, well, they think that Marathe and Cavenagh, I think, said this themselves, Chris. It's sort of the hard work starts now, if you like. We're on it. The sort of starting pistol is being fired, and it's all systems go.
And there's plenty of hard work to be done, isn't there? There's a lot needing done on this on the squad over the next few weeks. They've also got the pre-season games against Bruges and Middlesbrough penciled in already. They've also got the trip down to St George's Park penciled in already, and they know when that Champions League game is. So the schedule will get busier. The workload will certainly increase, and of course, as always, we'll endeavour our best to try and keep across it all. We've got the manager out the road. We've got the takeover done and dusted. It's now full focus on the transfer window.
Yep, you can read everything that Andrew Cavenagh had to say in that press conference on the website, folks. I think that the Marathe stuff coming out tomorrow, Chris.
Yes, tomorrow lunchtime for that. So it's not been written yet, but it will be on the site from lunchtime tomorrow. So plenty to discuss on that. Again, I thought he spoke really well, and there's some interesting wee lines in that interview. So definitely one to look out for on the site tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, good stuff. Big thank you to Chris for his hard work today. Thank you to you all for tuning in to this evening briefing. It's a pleasure to talk to you once again. We'll be back on tomorrow morning, 9:30 as ever. We'll chat to you again then. Until then, enjoy your Monday evening, folks. Bye for now.